The day's other headlines start in South Korea, where liberal opposition leader Lee Jae-myung won his country's presidential race. Members of his party celebrated tonight after a joint exit poll showed Lee was projected to beat his conservative opponent, who came out later to concede. The snap election follows conservative President Yoon Suk-yeol's removal from office. His short-lived declaration of martial law last year sparked political upheaval that deeply divided South Koreans. On the heels of tonight's victory, Lee promised supporters he'll reunite the country.
While politicians may clash over interests and draw lines between factions, the people are not bound to follow those divisions. People are the master of this nation, and politicians are workers who are responsible for people's lives. Political quarrels may not be avoidable, but people don't have to be divided and hate each other.
Lee will be sworn in as president tomorrow to start a 5-year term instead of waiting the normal 2-month transition period. Turning to the war in Ukraine, 2 days after Ukraine launched a wave of drone strikes deep into Russia, Kyiv says it damaged the foundation of the Kerch Bridge that connects Russia to occupied Crimea. The Ukrainian Security Service released video that it says shows the blast, though it has not been independently verified. Here in the U.S., budget officials have sent the first so-called rescissions package to Congress. In a social media post, the Office of Management and Budget said the measure contains what it calls billions in wasteful foreign aid and federal funding for NPR and PBS. All told, the package would eliminate some $9.4 billion that had already been allocated by Congress. That includes more than $8 billion in foreign aid cuts, plus more than $1 billion that was set aside for public media, including PBS, which airs this program. The package requires a simple majority in the House and Senate to pass. The mayor of Newark sued New Jersey's top federal prosecutor today over his arrest outside of an immigration detention center last month. Ras Baraka accuses interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba, of pursuing the case for political reasons. She says she was appointed by President Trump. Baraka is running for the state's Democratic nomination for governor. His lawsuit came on the same day that early in-person voting started. Cell phone video from May showed a chaotic scene outside of the detention facility in Newark, where Baraka was arrested on a trespassing charge that was later dropped. U.S. immigration officials detained the family today of the man accused of throwing Molotov cocktails at demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted on social media that officials are investigating whether they knew about Mohammed Sabri Salaman's plans. According to court documents, he told authorities that no one knew his intentions. Salaman injured 12 people on Sunday who were marching in support of Israeli hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Officials say he's an Egyptian national living in the U.S. illegally. The immigration status of his family is not clear. There is smoke and storms in the forecast for tens of millions of Americans from the U.S.-Canada border all the way to the Gulf Coast. Severe storms dumped hail and several inches of rain in the middle of the country today, with nearly 20 million people under flood alerts. Those storms are colliding with a massive plume of wildfire smoke from Canada that remains visible from space and is still prompting air quality alerts across the upper Midwest. Meantime, a giant cloud of dust from the Sahara Desert is currently clouding parts of the Caribbean as it heads toward Florida. It's expected to spread across the Gulf Coast region later this week. On Wall Street today, stocks inched ever closer to record highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added more than 200 points, or about 0.5%. The Nasdaq rose more than 150 points on the day. The S&P 500 also ended in positive territory. And today marks 100 years since the iconic Goodyear blimp first took flight.
And there it goes.
The Ohio-based company began making airships for the U.S. Navy back in 1917, and in 1925, its first branded blimp took to the skies outside Akron. Since then, they've become a larger-than-life staple of American culture, hovering over sporting events and national celebrations. There are currently 4 Goodyear blimps in the world, one of them in Germany, and 3 here in the U.S. In fact, there are fewer blimp pilots in the world, just 10, than astronauts. Still to come on the NewsHour, a former employee of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency speaks out about his work. And basketball legend Candace Parker discusses her new memoir.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein Studio at WETA in Washington, and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.